We good?
Yeah.
By the end of this video, you'll understand the importance of independency and dependency, as both are very important in the way we actually live our lives. Well, it in fact shapes the way in which we form relationships and how healthy those relationships will be. Because we often look at emotional dependency as sort of a silent killer that only destroys relationships, one that only puts you in a cage that you yourself have built. Alone kind of shapes the way in which we view dependency and independency as a whole. Well, what I have been told at least is that we should strive to be independent, to only be independent, and should only rely on ourselves and nobody else. And that way of living alone sounds alright on paper, but it's terrible. It is in fact terrible. We are social beings and we aren't solely meant to rely on ourselves, as we need others to just live life as a whole. Because there's going to be times in our lives, of course, where we actually do need somebody to be there for us. And when those times come, that's when we actually need to depend on people. And we just solely can't go through life simply by ourselves. To think like that is to think that it's okay to be
in chronic pain.
because whenever I think about somebody who's fully independent, relies on nobody, has no friends, no relationship, no need for nobody, I think about somebody like Patrick Bateman, and that's simply psychotic behavior as a whole. And we don't want that, do we now? Because we often have that idea that dependency means neediness, means inability to function without somebody else. But what if I told you that being dependent is not always a bad thing? We used to think that the change from infant to adult was going from fully dependent to fully independent, but that is just simply not true. What you do is go from dependence, full dependence, to full independent slash dependent. We just simply change our type of independency at the end of the day. We don't go from fully dependent to independent. We are still dependent. We need dependency in our lives, and we also need to be independent as well. And I believe that a lot of people really need to understand that the importance of having both in your life. Because to have both and to have somebody there for you only makes you more prone to having healthier relationships and to have a better life and a better experience as a whole. And this fact alone has actually sparked a lot of views among history, a lot of philosophies, psychology, and all that stuff. But for you, just for you, rather than receiving, we learn to give and receive in a balanced manner that is known as interdependence. Interdependence is the ideal form of having a relationship between yourself and others. And once we've actually reached this thing called interdependence, that is the key to healthy and loving and happy relationships. It will make everything sunshine and rainbows. And it is a very vital part of growth and development among yourself and the relationships that you have. And I'm not talking about romantic relationships. I'm talking about every single relationship. Okay then, so how do I actually achieve the balance between both independency and dependency? Well, for that you need two things. Those two things are autonomy and intimacy. Now, autonomy is the ability to self-regulate yourself, to self-govern yourself. It's that ability to be like, oh my God, the decision I'm making right now is the one that I know is, and I'm so self-assured about me making this choice, and I don't need nobody else to help me make this choice. That would be autonomy. Now, intimacy is as equally as important as autonomy. Intimacy is very self-explanatory, but intimacy is that deep connection that you have with others. It's that ability to be really vulnerable with somebody, to be able to open up with somebody and share your feelings, your thoughts, and have that emotional deep connection that we truly do need as a human. Now, those two things are kind of opposites of each other, and which could make it very hard and complicated to kind of balance each other. Like, you're already asking me to balance both independency and dependency. Like, what else do you want from me? Okay, so to balance both, you need two things. Well, you need one thing. That would be emotional regulation. Emotional regulation is a very important thing. It's the way I regulate my emotions. It's the way you regulate your emotions. How you express them, how you feel them, how you use them, and how you control them in a healthy or unhealthy manner. And emotional regulation isn't just your ability to control your emotions. I mean, yes, it is, but you also need others as well as yourself in order to regulate your emotion. And this is where we start to see the split between emotional regulation, the split between self regulation and co-regulation. Self-regulation, it's self-care. It's the things you do for myself, to go to the gym, to go meditate, to go see my favorite baseball game, to do things that I like for my own sake. And excuse me, it's something that we all desperately do need, and that is a part of emotional regulation that's associated with independence. Now let's go with co-regulation. Codependency would be the ability to do that with others. When you go seek out for others in order for you to regulate and filter your emotions. Not filter, but just use them in a healthy manner. Let's say your dog just died and it's very sad, and it's a very sad thing. So what do? You pick up the phone, you say, hey, I'm just gonna call my friend. That would be a form of co-regulation. And that alone is like kind of the heart and soul of just being able to control yourself and again, control your emotions. Because emotions are good, they're okay. It's just we gotta be able to like use them healthily and not just explode on people or just cage up what we want or what we do have. Okay, so now that you know that there's two types of regulation when it comes to emotional regulation, that would mean that some people are going to be good at both, some people are going to be bad at both, or some people are going to be really good at one and really bad at another. So this would make a lot of combinations, I guess. It only make 4 combinations of what kind of person you could be. And this is where we start to see a difference between just individuals as a whole, like how they take things, how they respond to things. Whereas we see somebody take things very calmly, and then you see somebody screaming at a Starbucks employee simply because they got their order wrong. It's just how people are, or how people choose to regulate their emotions. Somebody with good self regulation, but with bad co regulation, would kind of isolate themselves in order to self regulate. This type of person is known as the avoidant, and it's something that you don't want to be, but you may have seen. A person that has good co regulation but terrible self regulation would be somebody named as the caregiver. Now, the caregiver kind of latches onto people, just very needy and very please love me, please love me, please type of energy. A situation in which that is very common would be when a caregiver and an avoidance are in a romantical relationship. Now, you may think like, oh, they're just like a yin and yang, like exact opposites of each other, and they kind of complete themselves. No, they don't. They do not at all. They're kind of like a cat and mouse situation where one is running from the other and one is just chasing the other. And this alone might work in the beginning, but it's important to know that in the long run, it's just going to de-relegate each other, and it's just not going to work for none of them. And these two things are needed in order to have healthy adult relationships, and that's exactly what we want here. So how do we actually get those things? Before we go on, we need to find out one thing. Now let's find out where you are on the spectrum. I'm recording, right? Yeah. Okay. So let's just start off with the green individual. Now, the green individual is insane. They are pro. They are so good at everything. They are so good at both co-regulation and self-regulation, and they have that a security within themselves. Now, if you ever find yourself a green, I need you to do one thing, well, several things. And that thing is for you to find their information in a non-creepy way and formulate some kind of weird plan to marry them. Like once you see them, you need to propose to them, because these individuals are the ones that have the greatest relationships, the healthiest relationships, if you will, because they in fact know how to, again, do all these things in a balanced manner. And that's exactly what we want to do here today. Okay, but like what if she's like really ugly? Doesn't matter, bro. You need to marry them now. All jokes aside, this is the ideal person you want to have in your life. And this is the ideal individual that we should become. They're just too good. Like, they were just born this good. And some people are not born this good. And in that case, we're going to move on to the yellow type of individual, which is where most of us fall under. I myself, I am a yellow. I was born a yellow. I'm striving every day to be more here on this side of the spectrum. So the yellow individual find themselves on either side of either co-regulation or self-regulation. Now, this is simply because they are terrible at self-regulation or they're terrible at co-regulation. Now, let's just start off with what I would like to call Care Bear. Let me draw him. Let me draw a Care Bear. Now, the Care Bear has a lot of problems with autonomy. They have a kind of a inability to be by themselves. They kind of need people to kind of solve all their problems in a way, but they themselves, they don't really know about this. All they want to do is just seek out other people's validation, others people's love. They want to be liked by everybody, and that is because they simply have the fear of being abandoned. They have that fear of being abandoned, and it's so prominent, or just a little prominent, it doesn't matter. It's still in there, and they're often very unconscious about this fear. That's why they force everybody to love them. That's what they really want. That's what they really feed on of, because their self-esteem depends on others, and this is simply because, again, they have that fear of being abandoned. They're going to try everything that they can in order not to be abandoned. They don't really recognize or know their needs because it doesn't matter to them. What matters is the other person that I need to please, that I need to be loved by in order for me to feel good. I mean, I myself have been a Care Bear. I was once a Care Bear, and it was not fun at all, to be honest. So yeah, I wasn't the best at self-regulation. I kind of was very attentive to other people's needs, and I didn't really realize this. And that is just a big no, that's a big no. We don't want to be Care Bears. So we're moving on. So let's move on to what I would like to call the avoidance. Avoidance. So avoidance are, they avoid. Avoidance avoid everything. They avoid their feelings. They avoid other people. They avoid emotional attachment. They avoid everything they could possibly have. Now, you probably heard about the avoidance once or twice in your life because they are very common. There are, in fact, 40% of you are avoidance. These people have problems with intimacy, and this is simply because they have that fear of being invaded and loved, simply because they think that they will lose their autonomy, so they want to treasure that autonomy, and they kind of drift apart and tend to need more space than others, and space from themselves, in fact, because they just don't really want to deal with emotionality. They don't really attend to their emotional needs. They want nothing to do with it. An emotion to them is kind of like a rock at the corner of the room. It doesn't matter to them. They kind of believe that the whole world around them is very crazy to have these things called emotions. They think that people are too emotional, that they just act on emotion way too much, and they feel like they themselves don't have as many emotions as other people do. And that is because that is very true. They don't. They tend to have less emotions than other people, and not in a healthy way at all. Now, when it comes to an avoidant, you don't really spot them like this. Like with the rest of them, you could spot them easily, but avoidants are kind of like sharks in a way. Not sharks, but like, I don't know, just very sneaky. Very sneaky. They could go around and talk to you, other conversation. You could feel a connection with them, but they are not very intimate at all. They don't really like intimacy. Being an avoidance is, again, a big no. We don't want that. If you thought these two were bad, imagine this one. This one's red for a reason. Now, last but very least, let's go over the red individual. Now, the red individual, it's not the sharpest tool in the shed, if you will. And the red individual is what we would call a dominant. Now, I know what you're thinking. Dominant, isn't that good? No, it's not what you think it is. Being dominant is not good. Well, in this sense, at least, in this spectrum, at least. That is simply because they want to control and dominate over everything. They form bonds and relationships over control. That's how they do it. And that's simply because they have that lack of security. When you have lack of security, you want to create that security for yourself. And these individuals create security among their relationships by controlling it. And that's how they form bonds. They form it through control, whether that be aggressive, good old passive aggression, or direct domain, whatever it may be. That's what they look for in a bond, in a relationship, is control over the other person. And what I mean by security is not feeling safe by yourself or others. So these guys are kind of the combination of both a avoidance and a care bear, combined as two, but just even worse. But what they fear is that people getting to know them so well to the point where they realize, damn, this person has no worth within them, because they feel like they have no worth in them at all. They have such a low self-esteem that they don't really feel like they're very interested. They stay that cool, mysterious guy in the party. That's how he wants to stay. It's a no-no. It's a big no-no, okay? Now, I need you to know one thing. After that beautiful presentation, I need you to know that none of these relationships will lead to healthy relationships. The only ones that actually will would be the green type. The greens of the world are the only ones that are able to have healthy relationships. No matter how you put it, it's just the truth. And if you really think that you could just cheat your way and just get yourself a green, like I could just pair myself with a green, No, I have some bad news for you, buddy. It's not the truth. Because they don't like to get with other people outside of their group simply because they kind of don't understand them at all. They just know people should function good. I function good. Why don't you function good? They just want to just be with other greens. So if you want to be with a green, you got to become a green, which is why I showed you the spectrum in the first place. You got to find out where you are exactly in order to see where you are, where you have to improve on, and etc. Now, if you don't necessarily know exactly where you are, I know who will. Simply have to send this to a friend, and I could reassure you that they're going to know exactly where you are. I am not just saying send this to a friend so you could give me the view. I just need you to find out where you are. So I'm going to give you 5. So now that you know exactly where you are, you need to kind of find out what are your strengths and weaknesses. Okay, so what is it that makes you in that part of the spectrum? What is it that you need to work on? Or what is it that you feel or fear? What is it that makes you an avoidant? Or what is it that makes you a dominant? That's the question I'm trying to ask you. Because once you actually answer that question, of course, you'll be able to find a solution towards it. Damn, I'm really reliant on other people. I kind of feel like people will abandon me. What do I have to do for that? You got to go out of your way to become more independent. And you do that through the means of learning how to self-regulate by yourself. Not everybody's gonna like you in this world for no reason at all. If you're really on the avoidance side, you simply just have to allow yourself to have an emotional attachment to people and understand that it's okay to depend on others. You're not going to lose your independency or your autonomy. You're going to be who you are, and you'll always be who you are. I will not lose my independency because I'll only gain through the dependency that I will receive. If you are a dominant individual, no, I'm not talking about that. If you are a dominant, you gotta understand that controlling everything around you isn't gonna do anything at all. It's not gonna help anybody. It's not gonna help yourself. It's not gonna help no one. If you think that you're not secure in the place that you are or within yourself, I can reassure you, you are pretty safe. Unless you live like in South Baltimore, that's the only way you will not be secure at all. I need you to understand that you are secure with the place that you are right now. You are safe, and you are safe with the people that you surround yourself. And if you don't simply feel safe around a certain person or certain group, why are you around them? And if you're just that good and you're green, congratulations. So now that you know what you must do in order to become more green-like, I highly encourage you to be more green-like. And why would I want to become a green? Like, why do I have to change who I am? Just simply saying, improve who you are. Because these are just improvements and they're not going to suppress who you are. And if you feel like they are, it's simply maybe because you're just rushing the process. Like, I know for me, it was a very hard and slow process. And that's the thing, like, we gotta just get used to being more green-like. I, who was once a care bear, caregiver, whichever, I kind of didn't like it, honestly. I mean, of course I didn't like it. It was terrible. I just kind of got up and just started trying to be less dependent on others, and it worked. It really did work. Better relationships, better moments in my life, and a lot less, what would I say, neediness, I would say. And I just want that for you too. I mean, this process is going to take a very long time. You're just not going to become green in like a matter of days, in a matter of seconds. It's going to take some work and it's going to take some time. But once you actually start riding this new bike, you'll start to see how much it really was worth it. Now, sadly, we've actually reached the end of this video. Now, I know it's very, very sad. And I just wanted to say that there's this very weird button, like right below this video. It's like red. I don't know what it says. I forgot what it says, but just click on it. I don't know what it does. Just find out for yourself. It's okay to depend on each other, but please do it in a healthy way.